Hi everyone, it's HeapCVA. Welcome to my channel. Thanks so much for coming by. Good to see you guys, those I know and those I don't. Welcome to tutorial number 7 on 911 First Responders / Emergency 4, whichever name you have for this particular game. Same game, 2 names. Depends on what period of time you bought it. No biggie. And it's not part of what we're talking about tonight. Now, as you remember from our previous tutorials, we were headed down a road changing some files. And I got a question. Actually, I've gotten this question more than once. And honestly, I want to go off the path a little bit and go ahead and answer this question, because it's not fair for them to sit and wait while we catch up, and kind of take care of that. Because I got to remind myself, some people just bought this game. Some have owned it since it first came out. Some have never touched a mod in their life. Some play nothing but mods. And there's everything in between. And it's only fair that I try to catch everybody instead of forgetting and focusing on all the new folks or all of the guys that have been doing it for eons. I've got to kind of spread it out a little bit. So the question I was asked revolves around modifying the map or items in the map regarding mods, or it could even be the base game. And it's not as easy as it sounds. There's several steps involved. And so I've got to split the tutorial up because there's 2 things I need to do. Number 1, we've got to figure out how to mod or edit a given program or thing. It could be the base game or it could be a mod. And then number 2, you got to know how that all works in this game, because it's different than what you might think. I might surprise you, might not surprise you, about how this game does that. So here we are, as usual, in the folders for 911 First Responders, which is my name for the game. As you know, it's in the Steam directory because I bought it off of Steam. So we're in the base or the master directory for first responders. And we have all the loose files here that we had talked about previously. And this is where we're going to be tonight. And it's night for me. It could be day for you. It's evening for me. To address the question I was asked, first thing I need to do is talk about how this game, whether it's 911 First Responders, Emergency 4, or Emergency 4, the upgraded game, or whatever that word is that they use. There were, I think, almost like 4 versions that came out. Some had extra maps and some things like that. Same game engine underneath. But those that want to go beyond the basics need to know that there's another program inside of this game that allows you to modify the maps. You can't redraw the map. That's a whole separate deal. But you could change where a building is, where people walk down the street. You can change the height of terrain. A lot of things that can be done, but whoever made this game didn't make it easy for you to get to what I I believe is a program within the game to allow you to do that. Now, I've said that knowing that I've seen at least 4 different ways that the folders are organized for this game, depending on what version you have, whether it came from 16 tons or whatever. And I've actually seen one that had a link to the program I'm talking about, which is known as the editor. And we've already seen and had a discussion about the editor manual, and now you know what that manual is for. Now, the version of the game that I purchased had no link to an editor. And talking to a lot of people that do mods, this is not something that only happens to a few people. It happens a lot. Whole big issue, discussion about that. And it's a program or sub-program, because it doesn't even have its own directory, that is not always stable. The more stuff you put in a mod, or the more changes you make to the base game, the more chances you have for a crash. It is what it is. So anyway, what we're talking about tonight, for me, in this tutorial, is the editor and how to get to it and how to start it. The editor is a very unique program. A lot of stuff you can do, a lot of commands, a lot of stuff to learn. And so it's kind of one of those things that needs to be broken up, or we'd have a tutorial that went 4 or 5 hours. And I'm being generous. My mind says this is a whole college course on how to make that thing work, because basically what you're doing is kind of modifying the game at a level that game makers are at in some ways. I've watched guys, some of the guys like for the Los Angeles 2.1 mod, which is like the granddaddy, the things he had to learn, the code he had to understand, rewriting things, it's like it could get pretty deep. But all we're talking about is opening a silly program. So anyway, 2 steps are involved and some sub-steps to get to the editor. Now, I have in my folder organization, I created a link to it because there is none. If you put your finger over the word 911 modifier, which is my name for the editor, why I picked modifier, I don't remember. I know it's not right. It should say editor, but now I don't want to change it. You probably have all of the rest of these in your folder. I added that one when I realized I needed to use that editor and needed a way to open it. The editor and the way it starts is tied to the executable file that opens your game. And in my mind, if you mess this up for some reason, the worst that happens is it starts the game and you play for a while. Or it goes back to the desktop, and it's easy to correct, and you shouldn't break anything. I can't say you won't. You shouldn't. So let's talk about how I created this link and the icon, because they're one and the same. So the executable, em4.exe, I think it's the same on everybody's version of the game because that's the file for the hard coding. So that should make it easy. There shouldn't be anybody with instead of EM4 here, it says 911 first responders. So we want to click on it once. I usually click on the little icons. I never click on the words, because if you hold the button down a little too long, you can inadvertently change the name of the file. And I'm just highlighting it right this minute. So we want to find in that base directory of your name of the game, for the game, either 911 first responders or EM4, emergency 4. You want to highlight em4.exe, which is the executable to start the game. We've talked about this, I think, in the first video or first tutorial. What we want to do now is create a shortcut. So we're going to right click, go down a ways, and you can see where it says create shortcut. Now I have Windows 10. I think it's pretty much the same on Windows 8.1. Is it the same in Win 7? I can't remember. It could say create icon, but it shouldn't. It should talk about shortcuts. Let's go ahead and click on it. And notice right underneath what I had just highlighted, I got another one of the em4.exe things with a hyphen, or some people call it the minus, and the word shortcut. That's so they don't have duplicates. And I want that because that's the one we want to work on. So now we have this em4.exe file, dash shortcut, and we need to modify it slightly because we're going to fool the game into running the editor instead of the game. So those of you that want to modify the base game or create a mod, if you're that venturous, or change things in a mod that already exists, which there's a lot of that happens, you can get to the editor, do your thing, save what you're doing, and exit out. And it doesn't affect gameplay, or it won't affect the base game unless you change the base game. So in this shortcut, just like we did up here, we're going to right click on the em4.exe dash shortcut, right click on it, go all the way to the bottom where it says properties, and left click on that. And you should get a box, and I'll get it right in the center of the screen. And when I render the video, I'll make sure I make this bigger so you can see it. I even colored my mouse cursor so you can see it a little better. It doesn't always show up. It's weird how that happens in Windows 10. It doesn't make any sense to me, but it is what it is. I'm stuck with Windows 10. So we have our em4.exe dash shortcut properties. We're looking at, there's 6 tabs at the top: general, shortcut, compatibility, security, details, previous versions. A lot of that is common across many programs. For our thing today, we want to go to the second tab, bottom row, shortcut. Click on that so that this one is open. And it's divided. And we want to go into the target area, which is the next group down, where you see this box. And if I click on it, I can highlight all the stuff in that box. So right now, when you create your shortcut, it should paste all of the important stuff in the boxes to get you to a point. We're not finished yet. And notice that when it did it, and I need to tell you a term. So as soon as I click on the file manager, this is going to disappear. It actually just goes behind it. So if we click out here, at the top here we have all of the folders as you trickle downhill where our games live. This is called a path. From your drive number or letter to the eventual folder that you're looking for, how you get there is known as a path in Computer Ease. And in Windows 10, probably Windows 8.1 or 8, and probably 7. I just don't remember. If this is a box, if you click somewhere past the last word, look at it, changed it, highlighted it, and took my name, which is something I add to it. It didn't come that way. So that I could, if I made a mistake, I could copy the computer's known path to my games folder. To get it to go back to your normal, you just click down in the folder itself. So here's the box. I didn't close it. It was just behind. When you do that, you have to add the quotation marks like you're making a sentence. Just in case when you make your shortcut, it doesn't fill in the blanks. It should fill in the blanks. Keep your fingers crossed. I've never had a problem with that, but I'm just saying if it does happen, you know how to get the path without having to write it all down and try to remember it. So let's go back to the target box. If I use the arrow keys to move all the way to the left, there's the first set of quotes marks. D is my hard drive. Those are backslash. There's back and a forward in computerese. When you're doing file organization, they're all backslashes. My program files.x86 folder. I don't know why I did that. Then we go through all of Steam's folders to get to the game folder, which is 911 First Responders. And then the executable file that's underneath that, which is the m4.exe. And at the end of that is another set of quotes, or quotation mark. There's 4 marks in a closed quotation, or like somebody making a statement. There's quotes on both sides. So we're at a point. If we just hit apply, and it's not, I don't have apply highlighted on mine because I already have this shortcut. So it's not making a change that doesn't already exist. But if you didn't have a shortcut and you were double clicking this in the file manager every time you play the game, if we hit apply here, don't do anything else, we create a shortcut to the game that just starts the game and you play. No harm, no foul. The little trick that fools the game into starting the editor is as follows. And it's tough to follow along, so if I seem to be slowing down my talking, I'm not doing it to offend you. It's just to keep myself on track here. So I'm at the very end on the outside of the quotation mark. And so you're going to use your keyboard for this. There's no way around it. Hit the space bar once. That gets a space between the flashing cursor or blinking cursor and the end of the quotations mark. Hit the minus key, which is next to the 0 on most people's keyboard. It's also a hyphen. And type the word editor. E-D-I-T-O-R. Do not put a space between the minus sign and the word editor. It's all one word-ish. Even though, well, I guess you can make a word with a hyphen in it. This little thing that we created at the end, see if I can highlight just that. There we go. This little thing we just created that's to the left of my mouse cursor is the little trick that fools the game into starting in the editor mode versus the gameplay mode. And it's really simpler than I thought it was the first time I did it, and I was almost upset that it wasn't harder, and that why wasn't this in some of the documentation so we could have figured this out, and why wasn't there just a link? In any event, that creates what you need to start the editor. Once you have this dash or minus editor, however you want to say it, in the configuration that I've just showed you, hit apply and hit OK, and you'll have your shortcut. I'm going to hit a cancel because I already have one. But if you want this on your desktop, minimize. If it, I full screen everything. You can click on this, right click on it, and copy it. Go to your desktop, put your cursor somewhere in the open space, right click and paste. And now this is copied to the desktop with your change in it. One more thing you can do, if you don't like the em4.exe- shortcut, which I don't, that's why I changed the name. You can go back and right click on it, go to properties. Here we talk about the tabs again. Go to the general tab, which is the first one on the bottom row. Highlight this and change the name to whatever you want. So I just changed it to editor master. And if I put OK, notice it moved it up because it's in alphabetical order, but there it is right there. Whatever you want to name it, as long as you know that it's the editor for 911, shouldn't ever run into a problem. But that's how you start the editor. So that's it in a nutshell. If you know how to make a shortcut, which if you've had Windows for a while, you've had to do this. Some programs automatically install them on the desktop, some don't. Windows 10 likes to cram them in the start button and take more icons off your desktop. So it can go either way. Windows can walk you through doing shortcuts. In 3 minutes, you'll be an expert. This is just an extension of that, adding that dash editor word after the quotes to, like I said, wave your magic wand over this game, get it to think that it's doing what it's supposed to do when in fact it's loading that editor instead of the regular game. So that's that. Just to show you what happens, I'm going to load the editor. I will say here, especially when we're getting into Windows 10, we're getting away from the coding that was used for this game. New drivers, new ways of chipsets, all kinds of stuff that's changed. Changes constantly. Sometimes the editor will crash. I don't know why. You just reload it. If you're going to do a mod and you're using the editor, save often. If you think you're saving too often, save more, just because you're likely to crash. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this because I already have one. Now, whether this is on your desktop or you have to open up the files, it's up to you guys. Make it easy for you. I have a link or an icon on my desktop to open this editor when I need to. We're going to open it from here because it's right in front of me. So, just like when you want to start the game to play, you simply double click on it. And if everything goes well, I've run it as administrator. I recommend you do that with both the game and the editor. It sits here for a minute. Yes, it is doing things in the background. Don't freak out. It's just like when you load a mod, if your guys are doing that, you notice how things kind of stop for a second. It's a little more to load. And so we got to wait patiently for it to come up. And here we are in the editor. And yes, that is a grid, or whatever you want to call it. And it is in essence what your map, if you were creating a map for a new mod, would lay across. And then these disappear because there's a layer on top of it. But the zoom, pitch, left and right, you can spin around, because once you start placing buildings and people and vehicles, you need to move around just like you were in the game. And zoom out. Works just like the game does. And it'll allow you to create a new mod. You got to name it. There's some naming conventions you got to know that we're not even to that point in the tutorials yet. You can open a mod you already have. If nothing else, just to look at what's there. You can play with it a little bit. One of the things that I do, and I'll create a tutorial over it, is sometimes mods come out and you download them and you play them and you're having a great time, and all of a sudden you get a ton of traffic and you can't figure out why nobody's moving at a given intersection. They're all stopped at the red light. I'm going to show you in a tutorial downstream how to open up and look at each traffic light to see if it was programmed or not. And that's how in-depth this editor is it gets down to timing traffic lights and having to name and number each individual traffic light on a map. So if you do a big map, get ready to get some work doing 4 traffic lights per intersection. That's just one of a bazillion things that this program does. But I wanted you to see what it was and what it looks like when you first open it. There's nothing here because it is waiting for me to decide what I want to do. We'll deal with that in another tutorial, but that's what it looks like. You go up to Game and choose Quit, and it will close out, and you'll go back to wherever you were. And see, I went back to the file manager. And so that's enough for one tutorial for number 7. This was just to show you how to get your hands on that editor subprogram, I guess. I don't know what in the world to call it. That's inside of the game that allows you to make changes to both the base game and mods, if you like doing that. And it's the only thing that you can use with this game. You can't use GIMP or some 3D program or photo something, or there's no other program out there that will do what you want it to do for this game. It just doesn't exist. They made it very specific of what could edit the game, or edit maps, or edit mods. You can paint fire engines and other programs, but when it comes down to programming the mod and setting it up so this game will actually play it, it has to go through its own system, not anybody else's. So, enough for this one. Hope you liked it. Hope you understood it. It's not too difficult, but it's not easily accessible information that's written all over the place to make it easy for you to find out. So leave me comments, thumbs up if you don't have a comment. If these kind of tutorials for this particular game are of interest to you, and you're thinking of something that you've got questions about, let me know. A lot of the ideas I'm getting for tutorials come directly out of conversations I'm having with people that come to my channel. And that's a good thing, because I will forget certain things, because I've played this game so long, my brain just says, everybody knows this has been out forever. That's not the truth. So if you need a question answered, you don't understand something, you'd like to see something, please let me know. I'd love to do it. Keeps me busy. So, that all done and said, I hope you're having a good day or good evening wherever you are on the planet. As long as it's still rotating, we're in good shape. I'm going to work on a couple of tutorials and a gameplay video, and hopefully I'll get all that done here in relatively short time. Thanks so much for coming by my channel. I warned you I like to say that a lot. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing. Keep ahead of the lines and get information about what I'm doing before other people hear about it. So let me get back to work, and I'll see you in the next video. You guys take care.